you can connect your LinkedIn profile. Well, you can't do it when we're in presentation mode, but so this is kind of nice because we're actually going to get started closer to on time. So it's good. We're kind of excited today. Not kind of, I'm very excited today. Well, if anyone's talked to me, I'm like, it's all the time, but we have a great topic today. As much as we love talking about business, these are some challenging times for us, obviously. First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Business Roundtable by Exit Your Way, and many thanks to Christopher Nesbit from Nesbit Marketing, helping us with this, getting this thing set up, setting up that video yesterday, which was freaking awesome to show us how to use it, give us that stuff. But what we're going to be talking about today is emerging from the quarantine. And basically, we are moving back into our businesses in a different environment. And where you live, the type of business, the everything makes a difference now. And there's a tremendous amount of things that are changing in regards to work, employee safety, workplace practices, everything. If you haven't read the articles about it and you're helping businesses right now, you should get on the articles and start reading and listen to our speakers today. I'm really excited about the speakers that we have today because they bring a wealth of information and are certainly going to be able to help us because they're talking about these things on a daily basis that we need to be thinking about. So to start things off, we're going to have Amelia Mendenhall. She's going to be she's an employee benefits consultant with Rice Insurance, and she's speaking with HR benefits coordinators across the United States on a daily basis. So she's going to give us an overview of what are some of the things that she's hearing from all these people she talked to, and really what are some of the major concerns and challenges they're seeing. And then we're going to move over to Bonnie Barcellos, who is an HR manager at Magnusson Klemencic Associates in Seattle, Washington. And Magnusson Klemencic is a 100-year-old engineering firm. They've got 200 plus employees in a couple locations across the United States. They have done projects globally or continue to do projects globally. They've done like the sports stadiums here in Seattle. They've done just, if you get on the mka.com, and now that tells you how long they've been in business. They've got a 3-letter website, but mka.com, and look at some of their past projects. They've done some really neat stuff. But what Bonnie's going to talk about is specific things that they're dealing with and their challenges they're overcoming as they bring their workers back, their associates back into their office in the downtown Seattle environment, which I think is in itself has a lot of challenges just when you think of getting people to the location, to the office. So because they're on in a high-rise building and occupy a couple floors there. So I'm really excited about this. So without further ado, I'm going to also make sure, if you haven't met them already, we've got Andrew Cross here from Exit Your Way and Johnny Kingman here from Exit Your Way. They're going to be monitoring the chat and helping us out here and providing some input. So if there's questions, go ahead and put those in. They're gonna kind of raise their hand and notify us that we got things going on. And without going any longer with this, I will let Amelia take it off, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thanks, Damon. Good morning, everybody, and appreciate you having me. This is pretty sweet, and I appreciated being able to connect with people this morning. So I hope I'm able to, hopefully this is a continuing invite and I can keep coming back because I like this platform and whatnot. So yeah, I'm with Rice Insurance, and I work with businesses on their benefit offerings for employees. So the insurance products, medical, dental, vision, et cetera. We don't do any 401k or anything like that. But some of the stuff I thought about kind of talking today. Oh, and I'll drop my LinkedIn on there. For whatever reason, I wasn't able to connect it. So that's in the chat now. But So a couple things. One, just like housekeeping items, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. As of April 17th, the Department of Labor is now enforcing any penalties for noncompliance with the new paid leave laws. So that ranges, the scope of that is all the way up to civil suits, criminal suits, and up to $10,000 in penalties. So not to instill a bunch of fear, but it's just important that everyone is comfortable with those requirements. I know with a lot of the businesses we were talking to, because there was a connection to FMLA, they just assumed that if you're under 50 employees, it doesn't apply to you, and that's not true. The FFCRA applies to all businesses under 500 employees. And you can apply for some exceptions if you're under 50, but there are action items in order to get that through. So just making sure everyone is comfortable and aware of all those requirements and how that interacts with different situations that employees have. You know, if they get sick, family members get sick, they got to care for their kids, things like that. And then because I'm in benefits, I wanted to talk just a little bit about the way that coverages have changed. So, and you know, keep in mind, this is really good information to be communicating to your employees, because a lot of the changes are trying to benefit people who are utilizing their coverage, you know, expanding that, reducing costs. So one, anything COVID related, at first it was just testing, but now it's treatment care is going to be covered at 100% for all health plans. They recently expanded tax advantage items that you can use with FSA, HRA, and HSA dollars. So a lot of over-the-counter items that previously you could not purchase with those pre-tax dollars are eligible now. So I think that's pretty huge when everybody is trying to save money right now, being able to use those funds for pre-tax items. The big thing too is virtual visits. This is something that a lot of times when we're in discovery conversations, businesses don't even necessarily know that there is telehealth included in their medical plans. And that's huge right now. So being able to get diagnosed and see doctors for more simple, you know, ailments and whatnot, and get a prescription sent to your pharmacy. Also, a lot of the carriers are eliminating the costs for telehealth services, or on an HSA plan, they're drastically reducing it or making it so it's not subject to the deductible. So just making sure employees know the access to care that they have and the reduced costs associated with is pretty important. And then another thing that oftentimes is included in a medical plan, or something that maybe people knew about at one time but forgot, is employee assistance programs. And with the rise in mental health concerns, people are just, you know, it's unprecedented times, and isolation and fear and uncertainty is, it's a big deal. And so there's a lot of resources available through an employee assistance program. You can have, you know, we're not doing in person now, but there should be a virtual component for mental health visits. So kind of reestablishing that these benefits are available to employees and making sure that they have information on all the resources available to them. The other thing about benefits too is just cost containment. We don't know what everything is going to look like, and that creates a lot of fear in insurance companies' eyes. They're all about pricing risk. And when they're not able to get the data to price the risk, what are they going to do? They're going to try and protect themselves so that they can continue to pay out claims and all of that. So a lot of our clients that have January 1st effective dates in anticipation of 2021 rates increasing, you know, well above trend, you know, maybe taking your benefits out to market off renewal. Or are you going to now implement a base plan? Are you going to make dental and vision voluntary now, where employees can get it, but it's paid at their own expense? You know, what additional tax advantage items can you implement? Like, do you do a flexible spending account now? How can you save money as the business, but also help the employees save money? So just making sure that is, you know, if you're not up for renewal now, it doesn't mean that it's not something you should be talking about. And there's definitely something to be said for not making changes right now because there is a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And how do you roll out that to employees? What technology do you have to communicate and gather the forms and all of that stuff? But it's definitely worth some consideration and some conversations between you and your broker and just internally. So that's kind of just some high level benefit stuff that I think is really applicable right now. And then I think this will kind of transition to what Bonnie's going to talk about directly. But the other thing I wanted to say too is we've been helping a lot of businesses. Like one thing, and I'd be happy to send it. Shoot me a message on my LinkedIn and give me your email, and I'm happy to send it. But like, do you have a checklist for reopening? And what are some items that you maybe need to consider before you are bringing employees back to work? Because it's going to be different, and it's probably going to, there's going to be different stages, and it's going to be constantly changing. But eventually we all are going to have to get back to work. And whether you're maintaining some of these remote components, if that's really working well, and some of the conversations I was having earlier is, there are a lot of positives that are coming out of that. But the fact of the matter is some businesses are going to need employees to come back. They physically need to be there. And so are you, what cleaning schedules are you implementing? And are you making any changes to multi-touch surfaces, faucets, paper towels? Do you prop doors open? Do you have the capacity internally to establish a pandemic response team? And how is the communication being allocated to employees about expectations and the ways that their roles are changing? I'm just going to look at a couple notes that I had, replacing air filters, taping off walkways and pathways. How are you going to reduce congestion? How are you going to alter your meetings and your common spaces? Are you staggering lunches now? Are you creating schedules so that groupings of employees can be limited as much as possible? Or, are you implementing work from home days now? So you're staggering those schedules as well. Face masks, are you going to require them? If you're going to require them, is the business going to provide that? Are the employees going to have to provide their own materials? Are you going to reimburse employees for those materials? Same thing with gloves. So, what are your guidelines if an employee is sick? What symptoms are you asking them to look for? Are you going to be taking employees' temperatures? Are you familiar with the regulations on that? That's still confidential information, protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yeah.
So just a lot of different things. And then kind of the last thing, real briefly, again, high level, that I was talking in some earlier conversations is, with these changes, what considerations are you going to make to company culture? And how are you going to still engage with employees, allow them to engage with each other? Are you going to have virtual lunches? We were talking to one business, and they're actually doing like a virtual health fair. So it's, what technology can you use? Do you have maybe existing human capital management software where you're able to establish some sort of community or communication? Or is this a good time to kind of consider that? So whether it's payroll or, those administrative pieces, how are you able to do that virtually and give employees access as well? So a lot more questions, I think, than information. But again, it's just a good opportunity to get the wheels turning and some different things that you need to factor in when you're just trying to adjust to this climate. So happy to answer any questions, but those are just a lot of the topics that we've been chatting about with people. So
very cool. Amelia, that's so great. It's, and the thing that's, you just hit on some of these things. I was reading an article this week in preparation for this where, okay, this is going to be this is just me. I'm an old dude, right? And I go to sports, right? They were talking about the fact that they have to block off every other stall in the bathrooms. Now, if you've ever went to a sporting event, I have tickets to the Seahawks. There is a row of 40 feet long of urinals where you're elbow to elbow. And that's how full most of these games. How the heck is this going to happen? Just for that simplistic level from me. It's and dealing with these things in business but those are some great questions. We do have one question from the group. We'll wait till the end after Bonnie talks, because I think this is, and Andrew, you can help me here, but I think this is one we should wait till the end for. What do you think?
Yeah. For questions?
Yeah, that one's right.
I think so.
That was awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nope.
Well,
that's good.
Amelia, thank you very much. We're gonna let Bonnie talk now about how they've approached this at MKA and kind of what she's learned through the process and some of the things that she just came up that you would never really think about unless you've gone through this in a detailed level. So, Bonnie, take it away.
Hey, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Cool. Thank you for inviting me. It was a chance to dress up a tiny bit, although this blazer's coming right off after the call. I'll be 100% honest. But thanks for having me. And shout out to Amelia. We've been using our insurance broker quite a bit for help and use every resource you can, but we've been constantly reaching out to them to make sure we're understanding the FFCRI correctly, that our employees have access to telehealth and the best way to do it and all of that. So it's been a lot of help leaning on those that know our insurance as well as they do. So thank you for all that you're doing. We are, I think, in week 7 of working from home, and we are anticipating to return probably in 3 to 5 weeks is our hope. It depends on what our state allows us to do. And as you know, we are in downtown Seattle, so there's a lot of concern around that. But we've been closed for a while, and we have a small office in Chicago. They are closed as well, of course. We've started talking about returning to the office, and I've been really careful to not call it return to work. Some staff take that personally. I have been working. I've been working from home. We're returning to the office, so I'm trying to be very cautious on my wording there.
Good point.
And the biggest question, honestly, we did poll our employees and say, when we can open, are you willing to? Like, if we do a few different ways, we have plans of people like group 1 coming, and then a week or 2 later, group 2, and then group 3, and take about a month to 5 weeks for everybody to come in the office to get used to new protocols and make sure what we're doing is working and adjust things as we need before everyone's in the office. And if you don't want to come in at all, what's your concerns? What are the concerns that we can address? And so it was a good, really quick free SurveyMonkey that we used to kind of test how our employees are feeling. And one of the biggest ones is why. Why are we coming back? You can't promise that I won't get COVID-19. You can't promise that there won't be anybody who's asymptomatic there. And that's a really fair question. And we've been talking about that a lot. And personally, for MKA, we take a lot of pride in our collaboration and the fact that we are in one office together in Seattle, even though we have projects all over the world for a reason. And we feel because we can collaborate and talk to each other and be right next to each other and get up and go down the hall and talk to someone, there's a lot of value in that. And that's what helps us succeed. There is still questions of if I have to come back to the office, but I still have to stay 6 feet away from someone, so I can't go to their desk and talk to them, but I'm still going to Zoom screen them from, down the hall. Again, is it still worth it? We're still talking about it. I don't have a full-on answer, but there is value in still being able to see each other and have those conversations that you can't schedule and that just pop up throughout the day, and how much those do impact our work. And especially for our younger staff who have a lot of questions. About a third of our employees are pretty darn new, maybe 4 or 5 years or less experience, and not being able to ask somebody with more experience those questions, it is slowing down their growth significantly, and that is a concern we have. So the why is a really big piece of it. And our focus is the collaboration and being able to be together. So that's how we're talking about it. That being said, it's not going to be required for a long time that people return. Realistically, I can't ask all of my employees to return until schools are back. I mean, there's lots of other things going on, but until there's childcare, I cannot realistically ask everyone they must come back. I'm also not going to say just parents can come back or can stay home and everybody else. That's not fair. I do have staff who are very, very anxious and concerned and scared, and no matter what I do, they don't feel comfortable. And it's not worth having them be so anxious that they are not productive in the office because the whole time they're worried about their commute home or what's that going to be like. And so we are trying to tread a very fine line here. We're hoping to get about 70% back in the office for a while. And we'll go from there, and we'll keep testing it out. Things that I would recommend talking through is who has to return. We're trying to get everybody, honestly. We aren't picking this, like the admin team should come back or the senior leadership should come back. We want everyone back. So we are opening it up to all. That does include high risk groups. They, of course, can stay home if they want to, but to my knowledge, I don't believe I can require them to stay home. And Amelia, you might have something on this, but if I say if you're 65 or over, you can't come in, I'm discriminating against them. And I'm choosing a certain group and saying you cannot come in. Watch your state laws. Some of your state laws might say those groups cannot come in. So check your state laws and see what they say. I'm curious what our governor will say when we do start opening up, but until I get guidance saying they cannot come in, I have to allow them. I've got an employee who's 70 who thinks everyone's over concerned and wants to jump back in on day one. And that scares the crap out of me, I'll be honest. But if she wants to come back, I don't have a law against it. I have to be ready for her, and that makes me think through my protocols really, really carefully. So just to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So, Bonnie, have you found that there's some people, because you're talking to your employees that prefer working from home, or is it maybe more productive and maybe want to stay that way?
I've got a mix. We are a whole bunch of engineers and modelers. I always joke I've got the best people skills around. We're a bunch of introverts. But yeah, I've got a mix. I have some that really miss being around people, and I have some that are really comfortable at home.
Yeah.
We can't, but that's not how we've been set up. There is going to come a point where everyone's going to have to come back, but we are a ways away from that. So I'm not pushing that until I absolutely have to.
Do you think this is going to change? I mean, permanently change the way that you look at the office, and it's going to be more of because of the space requirements, that it's going to be more of a rotating schedule where you have some people that are going to be in office for 2 days a week and then 3 days a week next time, and you significantly reduce the amount of people on a daily basis? Or are you guys you're just trying to get everybody back in the same space and doing that?
Initially, there will be people coming in a couple days a week, especially as we start figuring out the commute. Long term, this might have a slight impact. Again, our philosophy is so based around being together that we've really pushed back against working remote in general. There's a lot of tech firms in Seattle that are very comfortable with staff working remote. Amazon has already told staff they don't have to return until October, right? Zillow, which is Seattle based, I don't not 100%, but I heard that they aren't asking their staff to return until 2021. So it is hard being in this environment and seeing other companies, and everyone's got friends in those companies who get to stay home, and we're asking people to come back when we can. It is a bit of a push for sure. So we're hoping that that's not the case, but we'll find out. And I don't love the rotating. If I have one group in for 2 days and the next group in for the next 2 days, I don't feel that I'm protecting my staff as much. Yes, there are less people in the office at a time, but they are still touching things and they are still there. And also, it's hard to have a setup at home and a setup at work. A lot of staff took home monitors and took home office chairs and all these things. And so to lug that back and forth every week, that doesn't seem feasible to us.
Yeah. So what really surprised you in the planning that you go, wow, I never would have thought that we had to think about that?
So much. I was talking to Damon about this when we were talking about the call, and we're trying to dive into the logistics of what this would look like. And currently in Washington State, the construction sites are open, but you must take temperatures on site there. And we started going down that road. If we open, will we take employees' temperatures and what that would look like? And we have a space that we could do, and everybody has to come in and go right to that space, and we take their temperature, and we have to make sure that there's 2 people so that there's not a backlog of lines, because then, it's hard to stay 6 feet apart. And if you have too many people in line, and how do we protect the people taking the temperatures, and how long will that take, and what if someone comes in before or after those people are there? The logistics got so complex. And currently we're not required to do it. Again, we'll see what our governor says, but if we are not required to take temperatures, we have swapped around to asking staff to do it before they leave and do like a symptom check, a COVID-19 symptom check. And we're going to give everybody a thermometer, and we are going to give them that symptom check and hope they'll put it up in their bathroom mirror and look at that every day before they come in. And if they have any of those symptoms, if their temperature's above 100.4, they stay home. So we're trying to figure out logistically what we can do that lets us run a business and not have to, and keep people employed and also keep our staff as safe as possible. The details are really, really interesting. Another one is you had talked about, bathrooms. We have multiple stalls in one bathroom, and we are going to limit the occupancy, or like 2 people at a time max. The kitchens we're going to limit significantly. We are going to keep our kitchens open, but we are going to limit them significantly. We are taking the kind of like the cupboard, I guess, the covers of the cupboards, I don't know what they're called, off. We're taking those completely off. So that's not a touch thing. Our garbages are in these bins that you pull open. Another high touch spot. We're going to take garbages and just put them out in the kitchen, and we're going to prop doors open. Anything we can we're going to put plexiglass up in front of our reception. It's crazy all the different things that we're doing, but if we want our staff to come back, I'm fighting for us to have like a one-way. Our office is a big circle, to have it be one way again, so you don't have that cross walking and someone breathing on someone else. I haven't got that yet. We're working on that. We're all still debating what again, how can we run a business and be productive, but also keep our staff safe. So we're discussing out the details. We are going to require masks when people are not sitting at their desks. And we've recommended people get their own for comfort level, but we are going to provide them as well. If we require it, then we're going to provide it. We feel that's on us. I can't tell someone to take their temperature and then assume they can go out and buy a thermometer and find it, all of that, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I did want to share one really, really good resource that I have been using quite a bit. It's a website called backtoworktoolkit.com. It's that easy.
Good.
Backtoworktoolkit.com. A group of people from Seattle businesses and a former governor of ours kind of created this whole kit of, create a return to work task force.
Cool.
How are you going to communicate with staff? Here's a flow chart for supervisors to know how, if someone comes to them and says, I think I have a symptom, how do they react to it? It's full of really, really good information. It's free. I highly recommend it. There's a whole bunch of resources on there.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, our chat's going
Are you
wild
working
here.
yourself for the most part, or are you collaborating with other companies?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Are you kind of working this out yourselves, within your company, or are you collaborating with some other companies or sharing practices, or?
We are talking, we're talking with a lot of other companies and getting input for sure. I've seen maybe, I think 15 different return to office plans at this point, which is helpful. It's really helpful to see what other companies are doing, especially the construction sites, since they are opening up in Washington, or are open, and what that looks like. And then there's a couple like HR groups. So we've been definitely talking with the AC and the architect, construction, and engineering industry. And that's been helpful. It's been helpful to see. One of them was the thermometer, like the temperature check. We realized nobody else would plan to do that unless they absolutely had to, just because the logistics of that is really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thermometer.
So there is a question from a panel or from the audience. Should I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead and let's get that up to the speakers and see what they think. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, it would be for Bonnie or Amelia, or chime in. But how do you navigate this when you have a senior leader who believes all of this COVID fear is in the heads of their employees?
That's a heck of a question.
I mean, my initial thought is if they have a belief, that employees have a belief. I mean, I don't know. You guys can work out the rhetoric and the phrasing and whatnot, but whatever they believe, the fear is there, and the regulations and the recommendations are coming. And, it's frustrating for business owners, and it's a scary time. It's a scary time for everybody, but whether they believe that this is kind of concocted or overblown or not, it's still something that needs to be addressed. So not focusing on the problem, but the solutions, because just because someone thinks that this is all overblown or it's not real and it's just perceived, that doesn't mean that we don't still have things that we have to alter and ways that we have to change doing business. And so, let them say what they need to say and get it out, because everyone has stuff they need to vent on, but we need to focus on solutions to the problems. And that could be one problem. Like, okay, so that's the case. They have a fear. How are we going to address that fear? And what are we going to do in response to that? So that's pretty high level, but, so that's just kind of my initial
Your thoughts, Bonnie?
Similar. Also, I would try to use data. to help convince them that there is this many people have been affected. This many, there's a reason we have stay-at-home orders going on right now, and hopefully numbers and data can assist. And that definitely is the engineer answer, but it's use what you can.
Yeah.
Well, and if people are fearful or stressed out, they're not going to be as engaged. They're not going to be as productive. So whether they think it's real or not, like, okay, well, this is what's going on. So how do we support employees and help them ease that so that they can continue to do their job and do their job effectively? Because if people are checked out and stressed out, productivity drops. So, business owners know that to invest in your employees is ultimately to invest in your bottom line. So let's support them and respond accordingly. And essentially that's taking care of the business.
I think, for this question, it does go back to what Bonnie said and what you said, Amelia, is you need to talk to your employees and see what they're feeling, because no matter what the heck I think as a leader, I have to understand that perception is reality, and that is no different in employees as it is in the world in general. And if there is that fear, as you said, Amelia and Bonnie, it does affect the workplace. It does affect productivity. Looking at it from the other end of this, I think about, how much is it going to affect the productivity in MKA because you've got to do all these, or any other business because you've got to do all these things, even on a construction site. You mentioned construction. What are these things where we have to have multiple people fit into a tight space working on something, or just whatever the industry is, that these kind of things, and how is that going to change? And there are definitely going to be productivity challenges as this comes forward. And I can see the financial pressure is going to be weighing on these executives at an unprecedented level, almost, because this is an unprecedented situation. So it's a really interesting challenge, that's for sure.
And I saw in the chat, some good comments, like Mike mentioned liability. Are you going to take that on, and are you not going to take this seriously, or, alter the workspace and put different provisions in place? And if so, if employees feel unsafe and something happens, what are you opening yourself up to from a liability perspective as well? So it's protecting you by protecting the employees.
Well, as a business owner too, MKA is a great company that's set up and has a very, very strong HR department. So they listen to their HR department, and the leaders need to. For once, this might be a good time.
Good culture.
Yeah, and that's not true in a lot of companies. I mean, as I think I mentioned to you, Bonnie, we ourselves have clients that are pretty large, over 100 employees, and their HR department has done virtually for this. That is, I'll bet if we had people come in here and in the chat and said, I'll bet 90% of the companies they're working with have thought about it, but haven't gone to the level of detail that you have, Bonnie, or that you're helping them with, Amelia, because it's just, first of all, I think a lot of executives are trying to put it out of their mind because this is something they just haven't had to deal with before. But B, it's never going to be the same. It's never going to be the same. So, yeah.
It's hard to know where to start as well. Like, I have to put it is really hard to know, how do I begin? It seems such a big monster.
Yeah.
That back to work toolkit really has been effective to me, and talking to other companies, like doing just what we're doing here and getting ideas and getting the ball rolling. That really helps.
Yeah. That's really good.
I think, because we're working with this, that we've got someone raising a hand. And Chris, I think, was going to call him up.
Let's give it a try.
How that works. Yeah, this is one of the features of the.
Bring somebody on.
The program.
All right.
So Chris, if you can.
Aaliyah, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you. A great conversation. I wanted to say there's a difference between danger and fear. Danger is real. Somebody coughs in your face that you're in danger, but we do not want to give into a fear-based mentality in the workplace or in our homes with our families, because fear is paralyzing. So be careful, be aware of the danger. That's legitimate and that's real. but make decisions, especially if you're in HR or in organizations that you begin to come out of this quarantine. Don't make decisions or set up processes that are strictly based on fear. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a great point.
That's a great point.
That's a great point. And it's so true, because you do have to separate what are things we need to deal with and still address the fear part of it too, because that doesn't go away. But you do have to know what the dangers are, and like Bonnie said, with data you can do that. You can say this is, yes, we could, but the chances are very, 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 very minute. So we're going to do this to prepare for that. I mean,
yeah, your response to address the fear cannot then fuel the fire even more. So being very strategic and mindful. And one thing, Bonnie, that I love that you mentioned is that survey of employees and kind of figuring out how they're feeling about different things. Because the more information you have, the better your response can be. And that just ties directly into what Aaliyah's speaking to.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, I particularly, I made a note of that. I thought that was clutch. You know, that's the key, right? You know, see what that's your customer. It's your employee. It's a statement.
What a gesture to employees too. If you're like, hey, they want to know how I'm feeling, and they are checking in with me and being proactive. So you would hope that makes them feel good and seen and heard and cared about.
Because if your employees don't feel that way, that you truly care about their physical health, then they're going to go home to their families, their productivity is going to tank. And Bonnie, you said it best, right? So there's a direct link between happy employees and their productivity, or unhappy employees, or uncared for employees.
Yeah. You know,
and I just thought, you know, too, the next step, you know, the same questions and the same tactic just to be used with the customers. What's it going to? What do they do? And ask them the questions for them to feel safe and come back. How's it going to look? You know, how do you want to like make it look? Yeah, no, it's really good, really nice.
There's a couple other things in the chat here too. I just want to bring to light is that, you know, Craig Wasilchak was talking about how can a small business afford to implement these requirements? You know, that's one of the things. And then Ira Bowman was talking about the cost of business will go up. You know, that is something that we're all going to have to deal with. You know, when you look at, and just take a simple example. I was talking with a friend of mine in Atlanta over the weekend, and he was explaining that with the restaurants, right? You're going to have to go down to what, 40% or something stupid like that of capacity. So I'm used to barely making it with my restaurant full. Now I have to figure out how to do it with 40% of capacity or 50% of capacity. What's that going to do to prices? You know, here in Seattle, when the minimum wage went to whatever to $15+ an hour, how did that affect the price of a burger in Seattle now is almost $30, you know, and when you go and look at this and how it's going to affect everyone, there are costs to this, and that is a significant concern for every business owner. I mean, MKA as well. I mean, you got to think about the loss in productivity, even if you just look at that with the additional procedures and not being able to, like you said, the collaboration for an engineering firm, I think would be huge. The loss of collaboration. So
thank you, Amelia. I think we'll put you back in the audience, and Randy was next. Was going to also come up. So.
It's awesome that this part of it. I really wanted to see how this part of it works, but I'm glad that we have people that are taking advantage.
We're actually out having the microphone through the audience.
Hey, Randy. Good to see you.
How you doing? I appreciate having the opportunity just to pipe up a little bit. I was just going to follow on with what Elia was saying, because, and you've already pretty well covered most of what I was going to say. The key thing in remembering when we're coming out of this, not having the fear, and being understanding and cognizant of the employees' needs is those companies that can do that right now are the ones that are going to come out of this whole situation the best. And even with what you were just talking about, there's all kinds of difficulties that business owners are going to face, right? There's lots of tremendous challenges they're going to have. But those business owners that take the time right now in this time to build relationships with their employees, to treat them as their number one customer, and have that good relationship with them, are establishing loyalty factors. And when they do that, what's going to happen? When their times are tough, those employees are going to bend over backwards to help the leadership of the company make things work. You know, they're going to be more apt and more open to doing the hard things, maybe working a little bit extra time, maybe taking a little bit of a cut if they need to, in order to be able to keep things going, because they feel like the owner's got things in their best interest, and it's a win-win situation for them. They're keeping their livelihood, they're helping the owner keep their livelihood, and they're in that way things are going to continue to move forward. If leadership doesn't right now, I'm starting to talk a little bit about what I'm going to call a paradigm shift. We all naturally want to think about what's in it for me, right? It's a natural thing. You know, when we're talking about things right now, there has to be a paradigm shift to what's in it for we. To what's in it for we, and adopting that attitude, which is a mutual prosperity attitude, which most people, I think, want to have, and they talk about it, but it's now is really a time to put it into practice, to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. That's going to make the difference.
It's a good point, Randy. And you know, in the chat here, I see some other things going. You know, and there are going to be harsh realities to this. I mean, there are. It's you know, if you got to spend thousands more to be in business every year, there are some business owners that are not going to be able to make it. They're just not going to be able to comply with the regulations, or they're going to have to, you know, significantly alter the way they do business. I still believe that there are opportunities for people that are thinking creatively to make this work. I'm not a doom and gloom person by any means, and I think that, you know, collaborating like this, taking the time to really just forget about almost how we did it yesterday, because that's not relevant anymore, is almost the way that we have to look at it.
Well, and it's interesting you say that. Have you noticed? Has anybody else notices? I have been now invited to like 3 or 4 groups like this that are of people that are getting together to collaborate. And this is unprecedented. I mean, think about it. We're all separate business owners. A lot of us are working in the same space, or, you know, or whatever, but and we're working together collaboratively to figure out how we're going to come through this and to help each other come through this. It's an amazing thing. That is one silver lining that's in this whole process. You got so many people that are, frankly, adapting what I call the kindness mindset, having pivoted to a what's in it for we attitude, because we're all trying to, you know, figure out, okay, how are we going to survive this, and how are we going to not only survive but thrive? How are we going to thrive coming out of this? So it's a great thing. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and Andrew and Chris and everybody who's put this together.
Well, thanks a lot, Randy, and I think that awesome stuff. And we have any more people jumping on, Andrew? We got room for one more. If we got. All right, Professor Randy, Pete, thank you. We're bringing Professor Pete on.
You can drop me away now.
Rocking. I like this part of it. This is awesome. Hey, Professor Pete.
Hey, guys. How are you? Thank you so much for this info. So I have Ira mentioned a question about, you know, the vendors want to come into a safe environment as well. And so I have an interior landscaping business that's in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're down about a third. And that's because we have a lot of customers who actually have gone out of business, restaurants, small boutique hotels, etc. The customers that we still have that we're grateful for, our technicians are now coming in. We are actually a critical business because we fall under janitorial, keeping things clean and stuff. So we have to maintain the plants. And so whether it was a security person who lets us in, or the office has one person designated to be in the office, they let us in. Now our technicians more and more are actually being swabbed to go every 2 weeks because we do 2-week rounds to come in. And so we're okay with that. The challenge that we've got is the question about whether or not these customers, if you're going to have just a small portion of the employees there, they're going to obviously not need that much floor space. They're not going to need that much decor, etc. So we're expecting a lot more reduction in our business as well. But we're being very collaborative with our customers and seeing what works for them. How do you do this? In some cases, we are having them water the plants if they've got the offices completely closed off and they won't let us in. But for a service-based business like that, do you guys have any other suggestions with this? Because this is like unknown territory.
Yeah, I think it is unknown for everybody. Amelia or Bonnie, do you have any thoughts about that?
I would, that's something that I meant to say earlier, I would communicate as much as you can with your clients, with your employees. I think it's great that they have access to the swab. That's amazing to hear, by the way. Really the communication, like if I'm a client and I'm going to go to potentially, use your services, what is your plan? What do you have in place already? What are you going to tell me that makes me feel comfortable using your company to come in and do our landscaping? And just having something, it doesn't have to be that big, but having something on the website talking about, we have these plans in place, and this is how our staff come and they're protected, and just kind of helping ease that uncertainty that I think we're all feeling, that there is some protection, and I can, I feel safe using your firm and you're taking it seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a good
great point.
Yeah. Because we are doing that. In fact, we originally gave all of our techs the masks, and they had the gloves, but we have clients who don't want them using gloves because, as well as I do, that people think that the gloves, that's fine, but then the gloves become dirtier than the hands. So just having a lot of sterilization around and hand cleaning. So, but that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that because we generate most of our leads through online presence.
Yeah. Wow, that's good stuff. This thing is going to be. I'm just going to summarize up because I see we're getting closer to the end here, but it's going to be widespread. It's going to be, you think about the things that are going to happen as we return to the office. Thank you, Bonnie, for giving me the right phrasing, because I've been saying return to work. That's so awesome because it is returning to the office. With our company being virtual, we have never going to return to the office, or at least not for the foreseeable future. So it's a little different. But, I was talking with a client this last week, and he said, what's going to happen if you have people in the restroom and someone leaves the restroom without washing their hands? What kind of things is that going to cost? I mean, just something that's not minute. Well, yeah, we all know it's not, not what you're supposed to do. And we all know that there's people that don't do it. And we all know now what we're in. How are you going to handle those kind of situations? This thing is going to be widespread. And down to what Bonnie was saying about taking the doors off the cabinets. Wow. That's you just never think about it, but that is a super way to say, listen, we're eliminating the chances. So, yeah. And it's really pretty interesting. In the chat here, we're talking, I see Ira Bohm again talking about making it safe for vendors to come into facilities and things like that we're doing. It's just really, there's going to be a myriad of challenges we're going to be dealing with, for the foreseeable future. And I believe I saw Brad Smith mentioning something about, this is until we get either a vaccine or everybody has had it effectively. So it's not going to go away anytime soon.
Well, I think we got maybe time for just one more.
We got one more. We're at 8:54, so we'll take one more question. Thanks, Professor Pete. Great seeing you.
Okay, Craig, come on.
All right.
up.
Craig Jack. He's been popping it in the chat here. If you haven't seen it,
he's only able to get him to shut up. We'll have to bring him up here.
It's interesting.
There he
Okay,
is.
we're looking at selling a business. A business, we're focused on driving net income. Okay, so an average anywhere from 10% to 20% net income on the bottom line. When you start implementing these standards in there, there's not going to be enough money left over to run a business.
There's no doubt there's going to be cost implications in it. This is the challenge that we're going to be trying to figure out for the next months and months and months, because if you have to add $1 million to your operating costs every year,
you can't.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, I remember in the last recession we had, we lost 10% of our customers, and in the business we were in, we were well diversified. And those were the businesses that didn't need to be in business. They didn't know what they were doing. And just, there's a certain amount of people that go away. So I'm hearing comments on here going, well, that's going to happen again. Well, take that and multiply it times 10 and see if the economy can survive.
Yeah.
So there's got to be something to balance out here, and we've got to come up with better solutions. And then how do you protect a business from being sued? What happens if we open up the business and we're all walking a certain direction and then someone gets a disease and they die? Who's going to get sued? I was just in that conversation this morning.
I don't know if it was in the chat or the Q&A, how do you even determine where that originated from?
Yeah.
So that's one, someone mentioned the liability piece of it, and how do you even determine liability for that? And I think that's a really valid question.
Yeah.
And are the insurance companies going to claim, oh, this is a pandemic? I'm sorry, your policy didn't cover that.
Oh, that, but that's sorry for the insurance people out there, but that's what it is. That's how you make money by not paying claims.
I don't do commercials, so.
I'm just throwing these out for food for thought, right? Because we all got to think about it. If you're an employee, you want to get paid, you want to be safe. If you're a business, you have to make a profit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the employees don't have a place to work. So you have 100%. To balance it out and come out with what's going to work. It's not easy.
In there. Go ahead, Bonnie. Sorry.
So
I wanted to the liability really quick, and there are going to be lawsuits that come out of this for sure, and all the different laws and all the different changes and who is responsible for what. I do think a way to help protect your company is to have things written down that you're going to follow. If someone has symptoms, what are you going to do? Are you going to do contact tracing, which I recommend looking up if you're not familiar with. It'll be hard for them to place it back to you that specifically, unless there's a large group like the meat plants that we're starting to see in the Midwest. That it feels like it's coming from them, right? That they have a legit case there. But if you are doing kind of best practices, your odds are better, right? If you said, one person told me they were sick, they were home for 14 days. Whoever they got within 6 feet of was sent home. And that's a big thing to ask in a company to do, but that is a way to protect yourself if you can. So I recommend that it's one thing, but write things down and follow them is important.
Well, update your employee handbook and get those revisions out and get signatures and be updating it regularly and communicate what policies are you going to implement, what forms are you going to have on file for all of that. I think that's a great point, Bonnie. And one thing I thought of too is, I didn't read the entire article, but I think it was a couple days ago. We're talking about the liability to businesses if someone does get sick and everything. But if you kind of zoom out a little bit, you saw, there was something in the Seattle Times about Amazon and that high level executive leaving because of the treatment internally and some employees not feeling safe and there being pressures to come back. And so it's, think about it even broader, not just of the liability of someone getting sick, but how are you going to lose employees because of the way that you're handling things? Like, what are different ways that you're going to impact your bottom line? Or certainly not all of us are going to end up in the Seattle Times, but what sort of reputation effects can there be with just discussions internally and that go out of the business with how you guys are handling things? So a lot of different things to consider.
Yeah. Well, those are good points, Greg.
Okay,
Andrew's going to shut us down here. So
Yeah, we're going to exit your way.
we get out at the right time.
Yeah, no, we will stick to the schedule. Let's try and do that. Everybody's got to get back. But again, I think awesome. Thank you, Amelia, Bonnie. There's just more questions. I mean, sorry we couldn't get everybody up on the stage, but great information to share. And HR is so important because it is your investment, and the risk that business is risk. Things are going to cost more, and that's that, and you're in the business of risk mitigation and protect your resources, and that's your people. So anyhow, that's great. I enjoyed it. We got next week. If we love to hear back from everybody, what they think of the new format. Next week we have Ben Baker on deck. Who's going to talk about how the onboarding your employees in the workplace and how it's changed. So that'll be very interesting. And I think we're at 10 o'clock my time, wherever you all are, top of the hour. So I think that's a wrap.
So if you want to stay, the tables are going to be open. Get on a table, talk to people, interact. If you haven't seen it already in the chat, there's a lot of LinkedIn. I believe I didn't mention, but I think Christopher has recorded this. We're going to drop it onto our YouTube channel, and we'll also then share it on LinkedIn as well on our Exit Your Way LinkedIn page. Hey, thanks a lot.
The networking tables too are available before the meeting, and we'll make sure we put that on the agenda next week, so you can all come in and hang out. So
Amelia, Bonnie, so thankful for you guys to come today. It's just awesome. I just get so excited.
Really enjoyed being a part of this. Thank you.
All right. And everybody that asked the questions, participated, man, it's just so grateful, so thankful to be involved with this. Have a great rest of your week, and we're gonna make it.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
See ya.